Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk for a quick second about boundaries. I think boundaries are a pretty in-depth conversation. There's a lot of learning, there's a lot there, but there's a few basics about boundaries that I think can be helpful if it's something that you've been feeling like you need to set or interested in learning more about. So I just wanted to give you a couple basics. So what are boundaries? Okay. Point number one, boundaries are a plan to respond rather than just reacting. So I used to think that I was setting boundaries if I was saying like, hey, no, you can't do that to me, or don't say that to me. And all I was really doing was kind of like kicking and screaming. And it didn't do anything. That wasn't setting a boundary. I was not making a plan to respond. I was just reacting out of fear. So the second point is that you need a boundary when you're getting to that point where when you're highly emotional, you're having like a fight, flight, fawn or freeze reaction. That tells you, oh, okay, I think I need a boundary here. So a lot of times we don't know we need a boundary until we're in that situation and we're experiencing that emotional reaction and we find ourselves reacting. That tells you, okay, I need to step back and look at this and think about what boundary do I need to set in this situation in the future. I always say that boundaries avoid the freak out, okay? So whether it is a fight reaction that you have where you start standing up for yourself, you start kicking and screaming, you start yelling, whether you freeze and you just don't say anything, whatever your reaction is, boundaries avoid you getting to that place of that emotional freak out. The third point, and this is really important, is that when we set a boundary, it's got to be something we can control and we can enforce. So I always say, don't ever set a boundary that you don't have the power to set. Sometimes that might look like, say, in a custody arrangement, there are certain things you can and can't do legally. You can't try to set a boundary. You can't say, no, you can't take the kids to this place if that's not something that you have the legal power to say. You also can't tell someone they can't do something, that we don't have control over what other people do. So that making a plan and setting your boundary is saying, this is what I'm gonna do if this occurs. So if this thing is said or if this action happens, I am going to take this action. I'm gonna set a boundary with myself. I'm not going to get involved in an argument. And then I'm going to set a boundary by taking an action. So that may look like leaving the situation, going for a walk, or, depending on the relationship, it could look really different, but it's about what you're going to do when that person takes that action that isn't working for you, not what you're going to do to them, not how you're going to give them a consequence. Those aren't things that we can control. That's not boundary setting. The fourth point is that depending on the relationship, sometimes you may want to communicate what your boundary is verbally or in writing to the other person. A lot of times you don't even need to communicate that boundary to them. Some relationships, it's important that we're communicating. It's a healthy relationship that there's healthy space to communicate that. Other relationships, there might not be a healthy space to communicate that boundary. And that might just look like knowing for yourself, this is my plan and this is what I'm gonna do if this person acts this way, and then just taking that action. You don't need to communicate it, you just need to do it. So those are my 4 quick tips for you for boundaries. Boundaries are a plan to respond rather than just reacting. You need a boundary when you're having an emotional freak out. Step back, make a plan for the next time that's gonna happen. Third, only set boundaries where you have power and control to enforce them. Don't set boundaries that are things you can't control. And fourth is communicating those boundaries. Sometimes you communicate them, sometimes you don't. I would also say that if you're new to setting boundaries and this isn't something that you've had success with, I would say get some help, get some support. It's really, really helpful to bounce it off of someone else. I know that there's a problem here. I don't know how to set a boundary. I don't know what the boundary should be. I don't know what to do in this situation. Then get some support. We need help with that a lot of times, especially if we're new to setting boundaries. You just need a little outside perspective and some guidance from someone who understands the situation, and then from someone who understands what healthy boundaries look like. There's tons of great resources on boundaries. Town and Cloud Sense Boundaries book, and they've got a couple different ones. Those are great. I love that resource. And there's a couple new boundaries books that have come out recently too. So it's a really important piece, and I hope that's helpful for you.